Hello, people. We have more seats in front. In case you want to see me more, come here. It's great that you're here before lunchtime. I want to kick off my talk by showing you my favorite book on programming, Clean Code by Bob Martin. And the best quote in the book is, "Clean code always looks it was written by somebody who cares." I know that you care, and I know that you have colleagues who do not care. And this is why in 2015 I ported the Code Analyser PMD to Salesforce. So I would extend that statement to say clean code looks like it was written by somebody who had PMD to enforce it. And since then, I had many talks about PMD, and admins, Salesforce admins who cared, came to me and said, "Hey, Robert, Salesforce is a low-code, no-code platform. How does clean code work on that? You know, everything is mostly XML metadata." And this is exactly why we are here. Hello, I'm Robert, and we will talk in the next 40 minutes about customizing PMD for any metadata within minutes. You might ask yourself why we need 40 minutes for that, but actually, I struggled hard to get all the hands-on stuff into 40 minutes. So if we don't have time for QA, just bump into me during lunchtime. Okay, but we have enough time that I can actually ask you for a quick show of hands. Can everybody raise his hand who is already like heavily using PMD? Cool, thank you guys. I'm proud of you. And the other, who is not using PMD but is like looking into it? Okay, so I hoped it was half-half, but it's not. But I will not immediately jump into hands-on, but start with a short overview, because I think that's helpful for all of you. For the people who do not yet know a lot about PMD, but also for the people who use PMD and might ask themselves, is PMD a thing? Is it a niche tool? So, why does my... Okay, cool. I'm fast. So the big picture. It all starts with messy and risky code. We all write it in our IDE. And we want it to be secure and clean code when it's merged into Git or in the app. I make the distinction between messy and risky because you can have secure code, which is unclean, and you can have clean code, which is insecure. And you probably all know the distinction. If your app is insecure, you will go out of a business immediately. If it's unclean, it might take a year because if it's hard to test, hard to maintain, hard to understand, you will just realize when you want to add features. When Salesforce opened the App Exchange, or I think even before, they gave us this infamous tool checkmarks. So this is like the commercial, professional tooling landscape. And everybody who used checkmarks knows it's not like perfect. From the UI, it gives only a few issues and many false positives. So it opened the space for commercial vendors like Clayton, CodeScan, DigitSec, and they do much more. They have more rules, they find better results, and they have nicer UI. But we all, or many of us developers, we think tooling should come for free. So there was also like a free open source space, and I'm just mentioning a few tools. There's, like for the JavaScript developer, there is ESLint. For everything Apex, Visualforce, there was PMD for some years. Smaller tools like Retire.js to find problems in your JavaScript libraries, your external ones. CPD is a small part of PMD which finds redundant code. And I just want to say, Salesforce invested in all of that tools. They extended like ESLint for LWC. When I made PMD, there was a team in Salesforce who built the security rules. But it still didn't help. Like all the commercial players, they still hacked on PMDs, said it's not really a good tool for especially security issues. And they were right, because all of those tools, they are linters. They look at code immediately. They tell you in a second what's wrong, but they don't understand how code hangs together, how the data flows. And this is what you need for security issues like CRUD and FLS and things like that. So Salesforce did more. They invested in a team, and this team built something which actually puts this open source stack on par with the commercial tools, not immediately, but from the infrastructure. The Salesforce Graph Engine is the latest addition. It's a tool which exactly does what all those tools do. They understand how code hangs together, how it behaves at runtime. And to actually put this under a nice umbrella, Salesforce builds the Salesforce Code Analyser on top. So no reinventing the wheel. There's just one tool which you can actually use locally in your IDE, and it runs all those tools. It harmonizes the results. Just here, it's an SFTX plugin, so it's really neat. You can make it part of your DevOps pipeline. And yeah, and today we just want to talk about PMD, but I just want to show you that actually there's not the open source tools that nobody cares about. This is the Salesforce open recommended stack. So if you already invested in PMD or today decide to actually do it, you are in a sweet spot. Okay, a short overview for those people who don't know PMD. So PMD, you just need to download it. It doesn't need to be installed. It's a command line tool, and it comes pre-packaged with 60+ rules for Apex and Visualforce, security topics, performance things like no DML in loops, naming conventions, best practices. And you can add custom rules, and I will show you how to do that for Apex. But many people here in the room might already do that and say, I want to know how to do the same for low-code metadata, like custom objects and fields, perm sets, flows, and we will exactly talk about that. So we will cover all of that. Perfect. So, I'm good in time. I might kill you with Q&A before lunch. So, you need two things for that. You need your rule set XML. It's a file. I will show you one in a minute. And you need a tool which nobody has heard about. It's an ugly Java Swing UI. It's called the PMD Rule Designer, and it's part of the download of PMD. And it's really helpful for building custom rules. So we will do it. So, but let me go back to the rule set and actually get out of my presentation and show you one. And I just want to show you this GitHub repository. It's called Unhappy Soup. Everything I do today is in here, like ugly code, which shows you which PMD issues, how they actually look like. And there's also, when you look there, there's a PMD folder. And in the PMD folder, there is a rule set. And I don't want to show you that in Git, but I'm showing this because it's really crucial that you, when you start a project, you immediately put that file into version control. This is not something you have on your developer machine. This is something you have as a team, which defines your standards, which you evolve. And so that's really crucial. But let's switch to VS Code. It's the same project, same folder structure. You know, here's PMD and here's the rule set. If you don't know, there is a wonderful plugin from Charlie Jonas, Apex PMD, which I think what's the command? I don't know the command. Oh. You can tell it basically where your rule set is, and then it just finds it. But actually, can you see it? Is it like big enough? Okay, nobody raises his hand. Okay, and sorry for the people here. I'm always looking there because so much more people here. So I'm not ignoring you. So the rule set. It starts with, yeah, a rule set has a name, a description, and before you even think about what kind of rules you want to configure, customize, you say what parts of your repository you want to scan, and I just use this SFDX structure force app where all my code is in main default, and I don't want to scan external libraries because they often have ugly code. So I exclude force app and then just include main default. By the way, there's so much more you can do in rule sets. I will not cover everything. I will just cover what I use. Okay. And then you decide which rules you actually want to apply. And for that, I just want to show you that's the new PMD website. And when you look Apex rules, you see there is categories. There is best practices, design, and each category has a lot of rules. So when you, that was one. When you just say, I want all the design rules, you just reference the design XML, the code style, error prone. So that's the easy part. And then you see it already where I commented with no way. PMD is an open source project. I wrote many rules, but there's also other people and they create rules I don't like. So for example, I don't want to be forced to have run S in my unit tests or always assertion messages. So I just exclude those rules. Another thing where I'm going to show you something is this priority thing. So here I'm saying I take for sure all the security rules, but I make them top priority. And let me just go into one messy code. And you see there is two PMD issues. There is a CRUD violation and a system debug. They impact performance, so don't put them there. But there's a red line for the security issue and a yellow line for the not so important one. And that's really, it's not only about colors. You can actually train your DevOps pipeline to fail a PR when you have a high priority issue and just output the others as comments. So this is what you can do with priority. Okay. Maybe let's go to rule properties. When you Google, or not Google, when you look up a rule in the PMD documentation, you get nice code explaining it, and then there's always, mostly in all cases, those properties. And for example, this is my favorite rule. If I could just stick with one, this is the one, cognitive complexity. It was contributed by Gearset, if anyone is in the room. Thank you. It tells you how complicated your class is to understand refactor. And there is a threshold for classes of 50 and one for methods of 15. And when I go into my example class, cognitive complexity here, you see when PMD runs, it tells me, hey, this method is way too complex, too many nested ifs and everything. And if you just want to cheat, like many people want to do, you just make a rule set with properties and just change this one property, and then just the problem magically goes away when you resave. You definitely shouldn't do that because those numbers are there for a purpose, but I know it's hard. Why do people hate PMD the most? Because it's brutally honest. Those commercial tools, they trick you. That's my opinion. But many people, even today, people told me, oh yeah, I ran PMD on my existing code base, 8,000 issues. I uninstalled it. So if the pain is too big, just play a little bit with the numbers. No, but you know, it's not only about tweaking, it's about actually being more flexible with rules. There was, for example, a rule that Apex unit should have asserts, which is a good one, and then Salesforce brought out this new assertion message, assertion class, and people said, when does PMD support it? PMD doesn't need to support it because you can just basically in this additional assert method parameters put the new thing from Salesforce or your own. You know, many companies create their own stuff, their own CRUD libraries, the fflip or the Nebula trigger thing we just learned about. Aiden, where are you? Here. Right. So, and really, basically every rule has great properties. You know, you really can adjust it a lot. So use the documentation is really great. But now my timer is telling me that we should go to custom rules. And for custom rules, I want to show you where we will spend like the next time. You know, this class, it has like two things. I want to try to do two things. You know, there is one rule in Salesforce which says you should not put system debug messages into production code because it degrades quality. And I disagree a little bit, and I just want to make the rule a little bit smarter by saying, if I put a logging level error there, what I do in production code, it should not show an error. Right. And then I will show you, yeah, but let's do one thing first. So let's shortly go in here. So you basically start the PMD rule designer from, I will show it to you. Let's close it. That's this wonderful tool. I can close it here. Right. So it's really just calling PMD with the /designer parameter. And before you need to tell PMD where to find JavaFX, that's the UI framework. But when you do that, it just loads this wonderful thing. And I know, as it's a swing UI, I cannot really zoom in quite good. So I will show you the parts. There's one important part here on the top. You select the language you want to actually write a rule for. So today we will do Apex and XML for any metadata. Then you have this source code field where you put in the code which has something messy that you want to detect. And then, so I just copied the messy code that I showed you before. And then there is the whole magic of PMD, of parsers, of tools. It's called the abstract syntax tree. So what you see here, this structure, this is actually what a parser sees, what PMD sees. So it doesn't see your code, it has this structure. So there is an Apex file which represents a user class. You know, you can have multiple classes in one file. It has methods, and methods have parameters, block statements. And you know, for understanding this rule set designer is just crucial. There's no documentation yet, because we use an internal parser from Salesforce. So just put your stuff in here, and you know, and then there is an important other field here at the top, at the bottom, and there you put a so-called XPath statement. XPath is a way to find nodes in XML, and just think of this abstract syntax tree as an XML document. So I will just go and take this snippet from my existing rule set. So I will exclude the old rule, which I didn't like, the avoid debug statement. And then I go into my new custom rule set and see that at the bottom, I'm including 2 custom XML files. You can name it like you want, but you need to put them in separate files. PMD would even allow you to have it here, but the Salesforce Code Analyzer can only manage it very good when you put them in extra files. So try have exactly the same structure. And this is, it's another rule set, and it has such a short snippet. It's rule, it gives the rule an API name, it's for a specific language, Apex, and it has a message, which is outputted in the IDE. And then it's always using a Java XPath rule class. So you always take that for everything you do, Apex or XML metadata. And then there are some properties. You can skip them, but that's the important part, what you see here. I'm just copying that. And I just want to have you have a look at this. This is the only thing you actually, where you need a little bit of learning. This is the thing that finds in this abstract syntax tree the problem. And let me just take that and go into this here. At the bottom of the screen, I'm inserting that. I'm just zooming in a little bit with max zoom. So I'm putting this in here, and maybe you can already see. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work here. It's finding a method call expression. So we are looking for a method where the name is system debug, and as Salesforce is case sensitive, we use like a function lowercase. And that's the first thing. I don't want to talk about the rest, but so let me just remove this. So when I take that away, you see that it here actually finds something. So it detected my system debug. But now I want to make it smarter, and for that I just need to look a little bit into the details. You know, there's 1,000 ways to write it, but I'm lazy, and I just looked, oh yeah, if I put like a logging level error, the method call expression has like 3 child nodes, reference expression, whatever, and if I take this away, it has 2. So I basically say the rule should only detect as issue those that method call expressions which have 2 children. The count star is 2 children. So that's basically it. So when you have it, by the way, this screen here tells you, you know, at the left side, it tells you all the properties. So when you click a node here, it changes the properties, and you can, you know, a method, you go on it, and it tells you the full name. So I know that this might look a little bit complicated, but it's actually not. So you don't need documentation. You take your code snippet. If it's very big, you reduce it to what you actually care about. And then you fiddle a little bit with XPath. And I actually planned on showing you documentation, but they just magically invented a tool which helps with that. It's called ChatGPT. You can give ChatGPT, and I will show you later a flow example. I just put a flow in and said, please write me an PMD rule, including all the PMD notation, which finds DML and flow loops. And it took like 3 iterations, like 10 minutes, and I just got it. So when I said you don't need to program and it works within minutes, I actually put ChatGPT into my consideration for that. So, yes. Right, I just want to show you another one where the XPath statement is a little bit more complicated. This rule, this is something which I often did wrong, accidentally in my code. Do you see this if statement where I check if the account is not empty and not null? I do it in the wrong order. I should first check nulls and then it's empty, because when it's null, I stole, I'm not sure, but somebody famous in the community created this rule. And you know, this is the rule. It looks a little bit more complicated, but I just want to show you how far you can go. You can actually find anti-patterns. So many people think, oh, PMD XPath rules, they are quite simple. They cannot really detect coding issues, but this is a sign it can. Maybe I can even shortly paste it in here. So yeah, so it exactly, you know, it's a terrible swing UI, but it detects exactly this line where I do this wrong. And as I told you, don't fear the XPath. It looks more cryptic than it actually is. Okay, let's go to where many people are waiting for, like XML. Everything in Salesforce is XML. And I want to start with something simple, like the metadata of an Apex class. I will paste it in here. It will give me this red syntax error because I did not select the right language. I go into XML and then you immediately see it's again broken down as an abstract syntax tree. And then you can do something nice. What I do here. I just match Apex class. I look for the API version. Then I take the text value, convert it to a number, and say it needs to be bigger or equal than 50. So the description is always in the negative sense. So this is the problem. So when I put this in here, you see it immediately finds the 45, which is too small. Okay. What can I show you more? I will not put it into the rule designer. I just want to show you that like metadata, like custom objects or custom fields should have a description, or no underscores in field names. There was a time when I was really putting the type of fields into the name, you know, encoding the type in so that formula developers actually see what the type is. You can build rules that actually check that. They look ugly, but it perfectly works. But I want to show you something where also ChatGPT helped me in building it. It's flow with DML in loops. So cool, 10 minutes to go. So that's a flow. It has a loop. This is how loops are made in flow. And it references an element called update contact. And when you search for that in the class, you see it's a node of type record updates. And you know, that's actually complicated. You know, maybe until now you thought, okay, PMD can find one node, but what we do here is we say loop, go to the element reference there, and this is perfectly doable. So let's just take this flow, put it in here, and then steal the magic XPath statement. I think, yeah, that's the one ChatGPT gave me. So I will put it in here. And you see, it finds the update contact node. And let's just look at the statement so that you see how powerful XPath is. So we say we're interested in flows with loops where there is a target reference which has the same unique name as another element, and this is what we do there when it says like text image equals, yeah, and then we say we want an element flow, record creates, deletes, updates, and we compare the two names. So this is, I think this is really powerful. So, you know, I want you to, but you don't need to understand that. You just need to understand that with XPath rules, you are even able to look at multiple parts of a file and still show the issue at the right place. XPath is very powerful. Okay. I actually planned for like people jumping and shouting, being super thankful for that. No. I just want to spend a few more seconds on the rest. You know, not everybody's into flows and coding. Some people just put all their org's metadata, at least the stuff you can put into a version control, and you can basically check all those things. You know, your password policy. Is your password policy secure? You can. What else do I have? Like, do we have profiles with modify all? Do we have too long session timeouts? Things like that, you know, that's more important for the people who are not building apps, who just version their org and want to do some checks. And I know that all the DevOps tools out there, Gearset, Copado, they have PMD included, and I think they all support like rule sets. And I think with doing that, you can basically check most of the issues that you can find in any type of metadata. Okay. I'm totally in time. Before I jump into Q&A, I want to thank you for your attention, your interest, your caring about clean code. As I said, all the code, the rule sets you found, there's also a GitHub pipeline using Mitch Spano's great pipeline tool, which calls PMD in the code scanner. You find it all under Unhappy Soup. Behind the QR code, I'm not sure where it leads you. I think the slides, so if you want to have the slides. And if you have a question, you can follow me on Twitter and write me a DM if you have any questions or want to give me feedback. And yeah, now I would say it's totally okay when you go to lunch, but you can also ask some questions now. Rob.
Yeah, can you have different rule sets for different folders? So if I say have a legacy code base,
yes,
hold that to a lower standard than my new code base.
Yes, I mean, it depends on the tool. For example, in VS Code, you can give Apex PMD the extension, only one rule set, but you could perfectly build a pipeline doing that. You know, all those tools. I think Salesforce is even building a Bitbucket and GitHub pipeline on their own, but all of them, they basically let you pass in a rule set, let you define all the PMD or Code Analyser parameters. So you could basically say, for this subfolder of my humongous monolithic app, I want to have this rule set and this. I've never done it, but I think it's perfectly possible, because in the end, it's just calling the tools multiple times. Yeah. Mark. Yeah, I don't know everybody's first name, but I try.
Could you use PMD? Sorry. Okay. Could you use PMD to prepare your app for security review? Do you think?
That's a very good question. I can first tell you that I believe Salesforce would never tell me that Salesforce is actually investing so much because they want the open source stack without check marks to allow that. And as you all know, I work for a PDO partner, which means we are building apps for App Exchange partners. We use this stack for our thing, and we find issues for that. Not only with PMD, but with the Graph engine, with Retire.js. I think so, yes. And honestly, and you know, we even did that together. We also compared it with commercial tools. They're also not free of false positives or so. So I would say there's still a long way to go until Salesforce actually gives us the tools which make us go into security review without having any issues. It's still like an opaque black box. But if you put some love into PMD, I think it can help. Yeah. So continue to use it. Yes?
Yeah, following up on the question that you just asked. It's probably possible to scan just a part of the code base, but is it also possible to configure a pipeline where you only scan new code coming in a PR?
Yes, that's possible. And I've seen a teammate of us doing this. In your pipeline, you need to do something different. You need to, it's not like PMD doing it or the Salesforce Code Analyzer, but there's a way where you can basically like get the diff of what actually happened and then just put that into that. So maybe you contact me, then can I share code? I didn't do it, but it's possible.
Okay, yeah, would be nice.
I'm not 100% sure if it works with that it even shows it inline, you know, in the pull request, which the tools like Clayton do very good. They show it really nicely, but it's definitely doable.
Okay.
He knows how to do it.
We do that with GitHub Actions.
Yeah?
So we use a plugin called SFDX Git Delta. We get the ID from there. We upload it as an artifact to an AWS server. We run PMD on that, and it returns the results, and then GitHub Actions can put comments in line.
I think we used that, yeah. It was something with Delta.
Thanks.
Cool. Anyone else? Everyone hungry? So again, thank you very much. Keep clean. And you definitely have to go to the Clayton booth because they have those certification stickers for clean coders. So go there. Thank you.